Welcome Ravens. This past week we have been gifted with some amazing new gameplay footage for Armored Core 6, and while much is still unknown about the game, there are definitely a lot of interesting things to go over that we get to see during this mission demo. I'll be trying to go a bit more in depth here and perhaps draw some parallels to previous AC games, because I feel having some point of reference would be nice. That being said, I'm not looking to label anything, or make any untimely definitive assumptions on systems I haven't had the hands-on experience to draw conclusions from, so please keep an open mind to everything we'll go through in this video. Now, holy shit, I've been pointing out how FromSoft have been showcasing these huge, extremely well characterized, and thematically sound environments ever since the first reveal trailer, and, oh man, this is shaping up exactly as I have always hoped for it to be. The level this AC is traversing is a proper megastructure, populated by an opposing faction, that creeps around every narrow passageway and outdoor lookout you can see. People that were able to attend the full presentations also mentioned that there are multiple ways to progress through the zones, accommodating for various playstyles and AC loadouts, and honestly, that just sounds great. It seems to me there's an attempt at having the places you deploy in to feel as integral to the experience as the moment-to-moment gameplay, and that's something I've always felt was lacking in the previous games. Sure, there are impressive locations in previous installments, and definitely a lot of intricately complex labyrinths to lose yourself to, while trying to clear your objective. But they very often feel very pragmatic, which is not necessarily bad, but it kind of always felt like there was so much more they could do. In the 4th generation in particular, we see ourselves boosting past most of the structures in outdoors missions, and it feels a bit like a wasted opportunity. It's almost as if these locations are a backdrop for the action, rather than working in tandem with it, save for a few exceptions. And in the 3rd generation, while drawing from lore-accurate reasons, the explore this 4th secret indoors factory thing is a bit noticeable. Call it hardware limitations, design choices, or whatever else it might be, but I think this time around we are borrowing from every one of those concepts and melding them together for something objectively different, yet familiar. Personally, I'm really excited to see how environments are handled in 6, even more so considering the huge variety of biomes we got to see in the trailers so far. The scale of it all really causes bewilderment. The next thing that really caught me off guard was the ability to free fly. And I don't mean flying from any point A to point B, that was already confirmed at this point. I mean actual free flying, almost like you're piloting a fighter jet, being able to hold what seems to be the assault boosters down, and freely pointing towards your destination. This is not something that is present in older Armored Core games. You've always been given the ability to fly horizontally and vertically pretty much at will, taking into consideration your machine specs of course, but never in this manner. I'm not exactly sure what sorts of gameplay ramifications this might have, but I'm on team movement. I think the better and more varied the movement options are, the better the experience has the potential to be. Though, I suspect that this might be only happening if you are not in combat mode. Same thing goes for this uncharacteristically snappy turning speed and animation, which I've heard has been a hot topic for debate recently. Nonetheless, having a free aim camera to take advantage of this increased aerial maneuverability sounds like the logical next step, as I don't see this happening without that kind of system. Speaking of camera and logical evolutions, it seems that things are shaping up to be quite familiar, but also undoubtedly new. When it comes to aiming and targeting enemies in combat mode, we can see a very classic 3rd and 4th gen approach to lock-on, as the AC's missiles seem to be guided by a multi-lock FCS. This probably means that the player will likely have to manually aim and split the amount of missiles that are meant to hit each target, something we've been accustomed to since forever. This is great news. One of the most interesting and uniquely distinct mechanics these games generally have is the way you acquire, target, and fire at enemy units, not only because you have to take everyone's movement into consideration, but also because you have to be aware of optimal firing ranges, and assigning different kinds of priority to different types of threats, based on your mobility, firepower, energy efficiency, and even ammo. Perhaps more interesting is what happens next. No pun intended. We see the AC just charge in with their assault boost, and seemingly hard locking onto this MT to deliver a highly accurate blade strike. Just like that, it snaps onto the next MT and suddenly it's pretty easy to see some sort of hard or orbital style lock-on is being used, which effectively means you'll be able to strafe, and weave your movements in, out and around your target without breaking contact. This is not necessarily something we haven't seen before, particularly in AC4 where you even get this little camera thing once you hard lock onto something. What makes it noticeably different is how much more aggressive and sticky it looks, and as we will see further down the footage, this might have some possible implications to how combat maneuvers and AC handling work. For now though, it seems there's at least 3 different camera and targeting systems, coming together for a seamless gameplay experience, I will also speculate that the free aim lock-on will potentially be used for weapons that are traditionally skill shots, like rocket launchers, making it feel maybe a bit closer to how AC-5 handles its targeting. In any case, that's only speculation. Launch pads, yay! You can also kick the shit out of MTs, by performing what I'm guessing are leg part specific assault boost attacks. It looks glorious. Moving on to the next segment from the presentation, we see a natural transition into a tighter, narrow corridor type of area. Usually in previous games this changed your approach to combat quite a bit. Vertical launch missiles and big hulking projectiles, more than often were either useless or dangerous to use in cramped spaces. So I'm hoping there's still a bit of that for 6, making it something to consider in the garage. Shields have been around since Armored Core 2, but they've usually been delegated to very niche use cases, often feeling too underwhelming and downright uninteresting most of the time. They've traditionally been just a toggle mechanic where you raise it up in front of you and it soaks up some incoming damage at the expense of energy drain. I'm super stoked to finally see an exciting and more skillful representation of this type of defense mechanic here. Everything points towards these back-mounted shields substituting their predecessors. First off, they are now timing based, which means you can't just pull them out and let them stay there indefinitely, but perhaps more importantly they seem to reward strict timing with more powerful defensive capabilities. As you can see, during the first few frames of it being deployed, some semblance of force barrier is erected, working as a form of perfect block. This sort of active damage mitigation works for a much more involved moment-to-moment gameplay loop, as opposed to solutions like primal armor, and I hope that there's some stat we can tinker with to maybe increase the perfect timing window or mess about with damage absorption. That would definitely make this a really well-rounded mechanic. Big thumbs up for this one. Next up we get to find out how scan mode actually works in this game. And it pretty much does what you would expect it to do. You can send out a radial wave that pings hostiles, even through walls, so that you can assess what you're up against and plan accordingly. Since we don't really have access to the HUD, I'm not really sure if there's additional information being displayed after successfully scanning something, but my bet is that this might be the case, and potentially the head part might be the governing agent when it comes to the functionality of the radar itself. That would be neat. Armed with some knowledge from the scan pulse, this pilot decides to go on the offensive, and here we really see it all coming together seamlessly. A hard lock is engaged on this individual MT, making it so all 4 missiles are sent exclusively towards it. We then see them taking advantage of classic multi-lock and unleashing a spread salvo on the nearby pair of MTs, quickly dispatching them. After the fact, no lock is engaged, and evasive action is taken in what looks like free aiming mode. In hopes of finding an opening, distance is closed using assault boost to finish up the encounter with another kick. All of this absolutely resembles something we would already do in a game like 4 Answer, just a whole lot smoother. We see lots of side boosting and projectile evasion, and attempts to shorten the gap between you and your target. The fact this all works reliably is quite impressive, and I really wish we could see how the UI actually functions and enables this interplay between methodical and explosive action. After this section, we're finally shown how the garage works in 6. Visually it's quite uncluttered, it looks industrialized, corporate and practical, just like it should. Given the general theme of this game, functionally it aspires to be a fused version of previous garage interfaces. We can see all part categories being displayed here, and it turns out some streamlining was taken into account given the absence of slots for radiators, directional boosters, stabilizers, hangers and so on. The stat screens are also very objective and straight to the point. I'm assuming this is the simplified view model. I'm sure we'll be able to see the nitty-gritty by using a toggle. That's pretty much a series staple since 1997. The part descriptions are a bit meatier. There's a lot of icons here that I'm guessing portray additional information that we don't really know about yet, and we even have a play video feature that sounds like a short showcase or explanation of that part's features, and I like that a lot. This hints at the possibility that every part is particularly unique and might have alternate use cases. I'm thinking secondary fire, charging, transformations, stuff like that. Another interesting catch here is the fact we have what seem to be sorting conditions for the parts. This might be far-fetched, but I would only think about implementing sorting if there were lots of things to sort through. It wouldn't be very useful if it were only a handful of parts. My hopium is saying there will be quite a lot of options to choose from. I don't want to talk too much about the streamlining process behind the assembly, because I'm pretty sure it's going to be just as complex and rewarding as it's ever been, probably just easier to grasp at a first glance. For any deciding conclusion, we will need to actually play the game and see for ourselves. So far, everything is absolutely promising. After completely changing builds into a faster reverse joint model, we come face to face with an elite MT, which I'm guessing will act like a smaller boss fight. Anyway, this thing looks intense. I love the design. It's very much so Armored Core and it animates so well. The real star of this segment is the showcase of how this sort of engagement will play out. So from the get-go we see our AC is now equipped with a shotgun on the left hand, a railgun on the right hand, a laser dagger on the left back and plasma missiles on the right back slot. This hopefully confirms we can indeed equip two weapons from the same slot and quickly change them on the go, which is what happens with the dagger and the shotgun, both being for arm use only. Next up we see an amazing display of movement options and we get further insight into how quick turns and hard lock on actually works. It all happens really fast, so we need to look at it in slow motion to really get a feel for what's happening on screen. The pilot is hard locked, but they are always trying to keep the MT on screen. The camera tracks to the target, but there are moments where it zips past our field of vision. In these situations we see the same technique being applied over and over. Quick turns. If we look closely, what usually happens is that the camera will track until it breaks sight laterally, and fully track if it breaks sight beneath the AC. The important thing to note is, under no circumstances does the AC itself realign onto the target automatically, only the camera itself, and we can confirm by watching the side boosters being fired into a quick turn every single time. This leads me to believe that while the camera might be very sticky, your AC will still face the direction you boosted into and not automatically track like an auto turret, even if the enemy gets on your back. We then see this elite MT fall back into a fully staggered state. Here the charged shots from the railgun cause massive pushback and the AC is actually able to land a 3-hit combo from the laser dagger. This sequence confirms the vision the developers have stated in the past for a combo-based system, where chaining certain attacks together is as important as which weapons you choose to use. This can certainly develop into a breadth of ways to approach the same combat encounters, and showcases just how much thinking has gone into incorporating other ways of skill expression for pilots, outside of mastering the movement system. Finally, we see another example of a charged attack, this time from the dagger, which sends the elite MT flying with a cool slow-mo effect to end the fight. For the final segment of the gameplay reveal, we are finally confronting a full-fledged big baddie. This thing looks menacing, a menacing Roomba from hell. This is fundamentally unlike most non-AC boss fights we've had in the past, particularly for the older generations. There are some bosses here and there, with telegraphed attacks and specific movesets, but for the most part they have historically been knowledge checks, damage checks, or a combination of both. Most of the difficulty of these encounters came from knowing your AC's limitations or exploiting certain weaknesses, as well as managing your resources up until you met the actual boss. In this case we are seeing a big emphasis on dodging very specific animations, waiting on recovery timings, circle strafing, and hitting weak spots. This is for the best, I believe. While there were phenomenal set pieces in the past, I never really felt like I was being mechanically challenged by most encounters, and now it seems skill expression, pattern memorization and quick reflexes all come into play to make the fight more of an elegant dance and exchange between parties. You can see or find out by intuition and observation where you are most likely supposed to be focusing your firepower onto. There are lots of different attack animations to deal with, and the visual spectacle also contributes a lot to how intense this engagement feels. Man, I can't wait to listen to this game's soundtrack too. Hopefully Mr. Kota Hoshino and Frequency will make a return to bless us with all sorts of bangers, they basically never miss, but that's going to have to be saved for another time. This concludes my overview and thoughts on what was shown and made available to us, via some of our peers and media outlets. I most likely have missed a lot of details and important information, but these were the things I felt most impacted my opinion on the gameplay, and it really only further affirms my excitement for the game. Let me know of any other things you might have spotted, and what apparent changes you like or dislike so far. Thank you so much for watching, and consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel if you enjoy my work. Take care and stay boosting.